In short, I have finally figured out that this is not my fault, but it's been a very long, tough journey getting to that place. I have also come to understand that Michael Fine's motivation for saying things does not make the things he said untrue. He called me special, unique, and beautiful. I struggled for a long time thinking that if he was only saying those things to manipulate me, if he said them and didn't mean them, then those things must not be true. I've come to understand otherwise. To all of the other victims, please remember you are special and unique and beautiful. Don't ever let what this man did to you convince you otherwise. I would like to say to Michael, you had the opportunity to be a blessing to women who are navigating the devastation of divorce. Instead, you chose to use that opportunity to satisfy your own twisted desires. Thank you for stepping up and facing the consequences of your behavior and poor choices. I want you to know that I have not merely survived what you did to me, but I'm actually thriving. My simple message to you is this: what you intended for evil, God used for good. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the state has nothing further at this time other than that there was an agreed sentence of 12 years and no further agreements.
Yes. I'll hear from the defense, Attorney Pyle, Attorney House.
Mr. Powell will open the defense's comments.
Attorney Pyle.
Your Honor, we'd like to hear briefly from Mrs. Fine and from one of her best friends from a long time ago.
I'm Anita Fine. I'm the wife of Michael. Excuse my nervousness. I'm usually doing that.
Yes. Do you want to be photographed or not?
It doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Mike and I have been together for 32 years. Beginning of our career, he received a diagnosis of prostate cancer and spiraled into depression. I couldn't help him because he didn't share it with me. I knew there was something going on. He wasn't himself, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I just want you to know that all these years, he's been a well-respected attorney, looked up to by many people. This was something that just came out of nowhere. And he's been a loving husband and father to me and my two girls. And I'd just like to take that into consideration. And I'm so sorry for any pain that's been caused to anyone.
Your Honor, my name is Carl Ferris. I sent you a letter. I hope you read it.
I did.
I've known Michael Fine a long time, as I indicated in my letter. We went to law school together. I've known him for almost 40 years. I'll rest basically on what I said in the letter. We've stayed close over the years, and he's a good man. He's done some bad things here, and I just hope the court gives him a fair and just sentence and gives him another look when the time comes.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Attorney Pyle, anything else?
Your Honor, I want to be brief because the court's reviewed so many facts in the pre-sentence report and so forth. What we put on the record in terms of the many letters from people who've known Mr. Fine for so many years, including his wife, his daughters, family members, friends, clients, etc., are all intended to be in the record for the purposes of future consideration of a motion for judicial release, which will be years from now. I understand that. But we've submitted what we've submitted with an eye towards the future, not with what the court's going to do today, because the court's going to impose a 12-year sentence. We would ask, though, the court to allow Mr. Fine to participate in the 80% reduction We like the record to reflect that although that there are things we disagree about in the pre-sentence report, we'll save the discussion of that for a later date. And I know Michael wants to speak to the court as well. I'd like to say this, Your Honor, that in hearing the victims today and reading their statements and so forth, I want to say for the record now and for the future that I think this represents truly abnormal behavior on his part. So, having said that, Your Honor, I know Michael wants to speak to the court, and I hope you'll let him do that.
Before we get to the sentencing portion of this, there's a couple comments I want. First of all, are you moving also to waive fines and court costs?
We are, Your
in
Honor.
state's attorney
He is
fines?
indigent for all purposes, Your Honor.
The court's right over the pre-sentence investigation, which contains financial information of the family. The court, based on that information, I am going to find him indigent and grant the defense motion to waive court costs and fines in this case. All right, in a moment, just have a seat. In a moment, I'm going to call Mr. Fine up. I want to make some comments about this case. First of all, in arriving at a sentence, and the court had negotiations with both sides in this case, and both parties were ably represented by their counsel. The court was insistent that Mr. Fine receive a serious sentence commensurate with the trauma that he has caused the victims. I've read over the pre-sentence investigation. I've considered the victim impact statement, the impact of the crimes on the victim, the statements of defense counsel and the prosecution, and the defendant's statement. There is a real dichotomy here. There is two different pictures of Mr. Fine. One is the one portrayed by the defense, and over 50 letters of support for Mr. Fine from his wife, from his mother, from his two sisters, from friends, church members, clients, associates. Even his pastor at his church wrote a letter on behalf of Mr. Fine. They all talk about how amazing he was as an individual, how supportive he was, a role model, a father, a best friend. And I read over and over, this is not the Mike I know. And I contrasted that with the evidence in this case, the statements from the victims. At the lowest point in their life, when they came to you for help and in the throes of painful divorce, custody battles, they turned to you for help, and you took advantage of them, took advantage of that trust and faith by sexually abusing them. You will go to prison and do your time, as the court has indicated. These women will continue to deal with the after effects of the emotional damage you've done to them for the rest of their lives. All of these crimes are egregious. The one victim I think I do want to comment on, and I will comment on this further during sentencing, is that you knew her because you were her family attorney. She came to you because she was sexually assaulted as a child, and she wanted to talk about filing a civil suit against this perpetrator, this predator. And you turned that lifelong friendship and trust, and you actually took advantage of her on a betrayal that is on the grandest scale. Next, I want to talk about the victims in this case. The victims have suffered humiliation, emotional and psychological pain at the hands of Michael Fine. I want to say this to you, it is not your fault. It's not your fault for what happened, because you were in a vulnerable, emotional, fragile state, and you turned to an attorney to help you, guide you through this. And instead of that, for his own sexual gratification, he took advantage of you. You had no way of knowing that he is the predator that he turned out to be. You're to be commended for your courage in standing walking up to him. It's not easy to accuse anyone of abuse, sexual abuse. But it's much harder when you accuse somebody who's in a prominent position such as an attorney. Every one of you have guts and courage, and you can go on with your heads held high knowing that because you came forward, this won't happen to anybody else again. A.M., one victim who came forward in the fall of 2014, and who tape recorded conversations and also videotaped the defendant, showed an enormous amount of courage to do that. And because of that, that triggered the investigation by the Lorraine County Bar Association, the Sheffield Village Police Department, the Lorraine County Sheriff's Office, the investigators for the prosecutor's office in Lorraine County, who all did an excellent job. But had you not all come forward, the resolution of this case and the sentence of this person to prison to keep him away from others would not have happened. One thing I want to say is, before I got on this case, I didn't know anything about hypnosis, very little. What I learned was from TV. And that is, I guess, the old stereotype, somebody standing there with a stopwatch or a pocket watch, and they're going back and forth, and your eyes are feeling heavy, you're feeling tired. That is a misconception. That misconception is that it's hard to hypnotize people. If you get the right victim, if you target the right person who's in a vulnerable emotional state, and you represent to them, I'm going to tell you about relaxation techniques. And I'm going to relieve your stress if you just open up and let me do that. And then they opened up, and then you abuse them, taking away, their dignity, but not their courage, not their determination. All right, Mr. Fine, come forward. All right, Mr. Fine, is there anything you want to say prior to sentencing in this case?
Simply that there's just remorse and grief in my heart for all the pain that I've caused.
Well, I hope you genuinely believe that and mean that. I have no illusions about sending you to prison, that you're going to be rehabilitated. One of the purposes of sentencing is punishment, and you deserve to be punished. No person is all bad or all good, but you must be punished seriously, severely for what you've done to these helpless women who are no longer helpless. They are now the ones with the power. And that's the thing about these types of offenses. It's about sexual gratification to a certain part, but the bigger picture is it's more about the power that you exert over these people. Now they have the power over you. The court has considered the purposes and principles of sentencing. To not sentence you to a lengthy prison sentence would demean the seriousness of the offense and not adequately protect society from future criminal conduct by yourself and others. The court has considered the seriousness factors. Injuries to the victims were worsened by their mental condition because they came to you in a vulnerable emotional state. And the court has also considered the serious psychological harm as a result of the offenses. You've heard from the victim advocate in the pre-sentence, and one of the victims. It is clear the psychological harm that you have caused is great indeed and likely to go into the future. And the motive of the crimes was sexual in nature in part. The recidivism factors, the offender shows genuine remorse. If you do, that is to also be considered, which the court has. So I've considered the fact it's a sex offense. There was physical harm, some discomfort, some soreness, and the grave emotional damage, psychological harm to the victims. I also find you are not amenable to community supervision. In reference to counts 5, 9, 12, and 18, those are all counts of kidnapping. The court is going to sentence you to 8 years in prison. In reference to count 20, the attempted kidnapping charge, the court is also going to sentence you to 8 years in prison. The court is going to order the sentence run concurrently with one another with the other sentences. In reference to count 14, this is the kind of kidnapping involving the young woman who had been sexually assaulted as a minor child. You knew her whole life. You knew she was vulnerable and fragile, and yet you took advantage of her. It is probably the cruelest of all the counts. The court is going to sentence you to 4 years in prison. So order this sentence run consecutively with the 8-year sentence in counts 5, 9, 12, 18, and 20, for a total of a 12-year prison term for your crimes. The court finds that consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from crime by you and to punish you, and consecutive sentences are not disproportionate to the seriousness of the conduct in this case and the danger that you present to the public. The court also finds that at least 2 of the multiple offenses were committed as part of 1 or more courses of conduct, and the harm caused by 2 or more of these multiple offenses is so great or unusual that no single prison sentence is justified in this case and would address the seriousness of the offender's conduct. The court is also going to impose a mandatory 5-year period of post-release control. When you are released from prison, you will be on mandatory post-release control for a period of 5 years. I've already explained the ramifications of not abiding by post-release control. And if you violate those terms, you'll be subject to another sentence or indicted on another crime. Now let's turn to sexual offender classification. By virtue of the factors in this case, and do you want to say anything prior to the court's determination that you are a sexual offender? You want to say anything?
No.
The court finds that based on the offenses and specifications that you entered a guilty plea to, that I am declaring you to be a Tier 2 sex offender. What that means is you must register with the county sheriff 180 days for 25 years upon your release from prison. You must register in person, your place of employment, where you reside, or in the institution where you are going to school or other vocational training. If you fail to abide by those conditions, then you can be charged with a new and separate felony, failure to register or notice of change of address. You have 3 days upon being released from prison to register with your local sheriff's office. And if you change your address or place of employment, you must notify them 10 days prior to moving or changing an employment or educational institution. And you must also provide a written notification of any vehicles that you are driving. Failure to register or verify residence at specified times, failure to provide notice of change of address, or the other required information will result in a criminal prosecution. Do you understand the requirements of sex offender registration as I have explained them to you?
I do, Your Honor.
Are you currently on any medication?
Yes, Your
All right, if your attorneys provide a list of the medications, the court will include those in a journal entry so that you can continue taking those medications once incarcerated in prison. All right, is there anything else that needs to come before the court at this time? Prosecutor DeZort?
Yes, Your Honor. Sidebar?
Yes.
Thank you.
guilty plea. But I must remind you again that if you're subject to mandatory post-release control for 5 years. If you violate any of those conditions, the parole authority can determine that you're a violator of your post-release control conditions, and they can institute additional restrictions, including additional incarceration that would be equal to 1/2 of your given sentence. So while you're post-release control, if you commit a series of offenses or violate their conditions, you can actually receive an additional 6 years on top of your 12-year sentence in increments of up to 90 days. And I want to just indicate that to you again, and that can be up to 1/2 of your prison term. If you make a list of your medications now and give it to your attorneys, I will include that in the journal entry. The last thing I want to say is the court is going to deny the defense motion for a sentence reduction sentence in this case. It does not feel it's justified.